lounging, son.
All right, welcome back to the Comic Cons. My name's Ryan.
And I'm Manny.
And we're back with another episode of the Weekly Poll, our picks of the week. Kind of a light week. I think the last couple of weeks we've been saying how big our take home was. I actually came home with more back issues than I did with new comics from the shop. One of the perks of being able to go through collections there, Get them. But yeah, still some good stuff.
It was probably one of my lighter weeks, but there was still very cool stuff.
A lot of good stuff. There's a book that I know you and I both have been anticipating for a while. Usagi Ninja Turtles. We'll jump in with that one. But I had the black and white version that I picked up at WonderCon, and I've been saving reading it because I wanted to wait so I could talk with you about the book. Maybe we'll do a flip through. Maybe we'll even do another dedicated episode where we actually show the book off. That'd be kind of cool.
I think it's a beautiful book, and I think it definitely deserves.
And we can do the black and white, and so you can see the black and white, and we'll flip through that one. That would be something cool. So I see you picked up the Sakai cover.
I did. I think that's the only one my shop had because they pulled it for me, and I didn't see any on the stands either. Either he only ordered enough for people, or it's sold out. Which I'm guessing it's sold out.
I would hope so. Yeah, I mean it's a great book. I picked up the black and white version of that, so when I got the color one, I made sure to get the Eastman.
Oh, dude, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So, I mean, long history with Usagi and Ninja Turtles, right? I mean, Usagi was created prior to the Turtles. I believe it was 82. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But look, they've crossed over quite a bit, whether it was in the Ninja Turtles book or in the cartoon or in Usagi Yojimbo. There's a lot of crossover there. They've had other crossovers. I think a few years back, IDW did I think it was a prestige format. It had a spine to it. I think they did a crossover. I have it. I haven't read it actually. It's in my pile to be read because I wanted to do a video on it. But so there's a lot of history. Stan Sakai, friends with Peter Laird and Kevin Eastman. They have a relationship. So it's very cool to kind of see them come back and do this again. It's the first book from Dogu, which is Stan Sakai's new imprint that's going to be with Dark Horse.
Yeah.
So even though Usagi has been published through IDW for the past few years, it's now going back to Dark Horse, but Ninja Turtles is still at IDW. I was so excited when this book was announced. I think you and I talked about it because it was in it. Yeah, we were. It was an ad in one of the Turtles books we were talking about for new comics.
Yeah, it was on the back cover. I think it was on the back cover of Last Ronin. Last year's, yeah.
And we immediately were like, oh, that's going to be a pick, So I think it definitely delivered. I'm very excited to kind of get into it with you.
I am too, man. I am too. I'm just flipping through it again now, and I'm like, man, what a beautifully drawn book,
I'll say it right now. It was my favorite book of the week. I mean, I don't even think it's close.
100%. Same. It was the first one that I read, the one that I was most excited about, the one that was on my mind as I was driving to the shop.
Yes.
And I love Usagi. I mean, I've loved Usagi ever since I saw him in the old school 80s Turtles cartoon. I remember I even had the toy.
I had the toy.
That was my introduction to Usagi. I had no idea until I started becoming an avid comic book reader that he was his own thing, separate from the Turtles. I always assumed he was just part of the cartoon.
The mutants, what I mean? Right? Yeah, because I didn't remember. I remember I had the toy. The ears broke off.
Yeah, mine too.
So and I remembered. I'm like, what? I remembered the rabbit. I'm like, and then I eventually saw a comic. I'm like, oh, is that same character of that toy I had when I was young? And eventually I'm like, oh shit, this character's been around for a long time, And I actually found out about the Usagi comics before I found out that Ninja Turtles was actually an 80s comic, which is kind of interesting,
because
it was it's the reverse, I saw the Turtles cartoon, discovered Usagi, and then Usagi comic before the Turtles comic. But I mean, look, like I said, the long history of connection between them. Usagi was even published by Mirage for a little bit,
That's
back
right.
in the day.
Usagi's had a very interesting publication history because it's bounced around different publishers.
Yeah, and dude, Stan Sakai, look at this is his, he's done other stuff, but this is his magnum opus.
Yeah.
He has been working on this character and some of the most beautiful comics, some of the best written, best illustrated, and his lettering. He's done all of it.
Dude, yeah, he was the I don't know if the Spider-Man newspaper strip is still a thing, but he was the letterer on that for a very long time. The one that used to go in newspapers.
Yeah, I know
he lettered that.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, look, he's won an Eisner multiple times, I think, for his lettering. He is
Yeah,
just one of the best cartoonists that this industry has ever seen.
absolutely, man, absolutely.
And it's so cool to kind of see him be able to create this character. He still owns it, you know?
Hmm.
I mean, I hate like not to say anything like I mean Eastman and Laird, like I get it, like the
I mean,
Ninja
there's even
Tur-
a Netflix cartoon I think recently that was done. I haven't
yeah,
seen it yet, but I mean, he's definitely crossed over into multiple medias. I'm
yeah.
even surprised we haven't seen like a really badass like animated movie with this. Like a Pixar style or like something like that. Like because I mean, property is that good. It lends itself, and I think like the populace at large would love this.
I definitely think it has such a rich history. There's so much stuff you can pull from. But I love it. Normally I like it in black and white. That's why I wanted to pick up that version. But
Yes, because it usually is correct.
yeah, because Usagi usually is in black and white, except with the IDW series, which has all been in color. Which the coloring has been great. Don't get me wrong. It's been a great book. I've been loving it. This is a beautiful book, dude. I'm watching you flip through it. I'm flipping through it as we're talking. It kicks off with Usagi, right? And the whole supporting cast, right? You have
Yeah, everyone's
Sister, you
there.
have
Yeah.
Jen and Tomo, and they're off to battle. This is what I love about it, dude. It's like each of these characters, if you've read Usagi, like they all have such a deep history, so many deep connections, so many things that have tied into multiple storylines, and like
And there's
you can,
seven of them, like the seven samurai too. So like
yeah,
there's, yeah,
yeah, and dude, I
yeah.
just love this character so much, and I'm telling you, dude, like when I saw the turtles come like crossing over, like, dude, I was so excited. I can't stop smiling about the book, dude. It was
Yeah.
such a good book.
And what I love about the plot and the story here is that it functions as both an Usagi story and a turtle story. And like, like I love the narrative structure he did here where like the first half is the Usagi story. And then, you cut to the future with the turtles and what they're doing. And then at the very end, it all just kind of comes together in such a great cliffhanger. And
Yes,
I love the villain. I'm not. I was going to ask you because you probably would know a little bit better than me. Doctor Wherewhen, is that a creation for this story? Because I don't remember
I
that
believe
character.
so. I've never
What
seen
a
that
great
character.
name and what a great concept! Like it.
Yeah,
That's why it's like a testament for me asking you because like that seems like something that would have been in like a Turtles comic or something. Like it's got that like old school Eastman and Laird feel to it.
yeah, and look, I just like I said, like the history of them, right? Like you have Usagi and Tomo, they're like walking up the river and they're talking, and like they have such a history between them.
Hmm.
And in just one
Yeah,
page, he perfectly encapsulates like what they've been through, kind of, like what would have happened if we would have been married, and not
yeah,
you, and stuff like that, and like, and is there none in yours, like any love in your marriage? Because she envies, or the happiness, I mean, because she envies Jen and Kitsune who are married, right? And like,
right.
so like I don't know necessarily like if you need to have the knowledge of the whole supporting cast of Usagi, because I feel like this is a pretty good jumping off. I feel like you
It
benefit from
is.
knowing. I feel like you
Yes.
benefit from knowing, definitely, but it's definitely such a good entry point. If like, let's say you're a Turtles fan and you pick this book up, I think you're gonna love it. I think you're still gonna like fall in love with these characters, and then maybe you want to go pick up Usagi. Like I've read a lot, not all of it, because there is a ton of Usagi Yojimbo, but and like I love when they're walking, you see the kappa, which are like these turtle kind of creatures,
Yeah.
and that kind of ties into like where the bashing, or not bashing, but where the conflict is going to come from later on. I love his choreography. I love his fighting scenes. Like there's a fluidity to it, like it's like a gracefulness to it. I'm sorry, that's what I'm going to say with his
Yes.
choreography.
It's
Like,
very elegant. His
yeah,
for like a basically what is a cartooning of a samurai rabbit. You know what I mean? It sounds silly, but like he brings this like gravitas and this like elegance to what he does. Where like like as a fan of like old samurai movies, like I really do see like a Kurosawa influence into what he's doing. Like like he's still like paying respect and homage to the genre, which does take itself seriously because it lends itself to serious stories and like he's told some really tragic stories with this character. I mean,
Yeah, dude. Yeah, tons of them, dude. I mean, I like
Yeah.
from the Fantagraphics collection to all those saga books. Like I have the Fantagraphics and I have the three sagas, and then I have basically the entire run of IDW. But yeah, it's like he's studying the history. It's not like he's just making stuff. Like he studies
Yeah,
the
he does a
time
ton of
period,
research. He's like a
ton
research
of research.
dude.
Yes.
Yeah.
I
And
love
it,
when
it
it.
shows. It shows because the history and the dates and time periods are all very accurate. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like he yeah, he's definitely, using anthropomorphic characters, but he is infusing it with a lot of like real Japanese feudal history.
And I love when we jump to New York,
Oh dude,
and
yeah. Yeah.
because you don't really see Stan Sakai drawing this stuff, you
No,
know?
you don't. Yeah, and like, dude, I was gonna point out, like, there's some panels here that I'm like, I fucking love, and he's obviously paying homage to like the old school Eastman and Laird like turtles. Like,
Like these
dude,
pages.
yeah, that one.
Yes.
There's another one
The
that
one with him jumping.
the one right above them,
Oh,
with like
running
the
on the
that's
rooftop.
classic turtles on the rooftops. Like, I mean, that's an image that any Turtles fans has seared in their heads, and he's giving you these iconic images like on almost every page, which makes me realize that he's also someone that just unabashedly loves the turtles himself. Like he's
And he's got their voices down, dude.
yes, yes, yeah.
It definitely doesn't feel like you have somebody that doesn't know how to write the turtles. Like, yes, there's not like
Or
a
is
ton of.
shoehorning the turtles into a crossover of some kind. Like,
Yeah,
and
like
the story works, man. I mean, you got this time traveling scientist that wants to alter history so that he's in power in the present, and he's going back in time trying to fuck things up. Like, it's a great concept to fuse these two like properties together.
Oh,
Love it.
dude, yes, this Dr. Wherewhen, like the talking about.
Great name. Great name.
Um, man,
Great
I could real.
design, like simple robot. Reminds me of Fugitoid, like
I mean, I love this. Look, I mean, they're fighting, like, oh, he's from the
this
future. They
page is
probably.
amazing too.
Yeah,
Like
they're probably using robots for everything, and Ralph's like, oh, including delivering pizza. Man, I could really go for a pepperoni pie right now. Like, like it doesn't come off corny. Like it's just funny
no,
banter
that's just
as it.
classic turtles, man. Like
Yeah. And I love this version of the Turtles. Look, this is something I've said. I kind of
I know where
like
you're going with this, and I
as
agree
much
with
as I
you. Yeah.
love IDW's Turtles ongoing, I miss the
Yes.
four.
The
I
four
feel
brothers fighting robots and ninjas and talking about fucking pizza, dude. You know what
yeah,
I
dude.
mean?
I
Like,
was talking about this with Steve Levine, who was a part of the early Mirage. He was the first Mirage employee. He was the one that lettered it. He colored the first comics reprints. The trades that they did. He's a part of Mirage basically from its beginning. And
yeah,
and we were talking about like there could be like a multiverse, right? You could
yeah.
have that book where it's just the four. Maybe it's not necessarily tied
Wow,
into
dude,
the.
that's very true. I never even thought about that angle, but
It's
that's
like,
that's
come
actually a
on,
really
dude.
good idea.
Come
Yeah,
on.
yeah,
You're doing the Saturday morning adventures. You can't give me a book set in the Mirage universe, set with just
yeah,
the four, or even just
yeah,
maybe a book in the IDW continuity, but just when it was just the four of them. Like
yeah.
I like what they're doing with the new stuff. That's cool. But sometimes I just want a turtle book with the four turtles, where it's just them. And I think that, sometimes it can be super convoluted in terms of what's going on. But anyways, that's besides the point. I love this version. I love that we get the four turtles. The catalyst to get them into the crossover, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like it's simple, but not simple in the sense that it's like, oh, of course that's how they do it. Like it was an interesting way, and like having them come across Usagi and his sister, shit's about to go down. I love that.
Yeah,
I love the preview for the cover of the next issue. What a great
same.
cover. Just so good, dude. I love his rendition of the turtles, like I feel like
I do too, man. I was just looking at the different pages and seeing like how good he is at like their faces and their expressions to because the turtles have a very simple face. It's hard to probably give them any kind of emotion because there's not a lot to work with. But he's able to do it with just like like the creases on the bandanas and like the way the eyes are shaped and the mouths. Like he does a lot with what
yes.
is essentially a pretty simply designed like face for a character.
Yeah, it's such a great book. I'm sad
Yeah,
that I have to
it's
wait for
my
the next.
favorite book of the week, and if the rest of the series is as good as this, it could be a top 10 for the year already. So
It's probably I'll say it right now. It's gonna be
yeah,
in my picks of the year. I mean, look at that, dude. What a great first issue. Like I said, we say it a lot. Like first issues, like you either do a good one or you I guess you can do a mediocre one. It's rare that I'm like, oh, that's a bad first issue, but this is not a forgettable first issue. Some are forgettable,
No.
but this one was great. So if you guys go pick up the book. Definitely go pick up the book.
Yes.
It's a great book.
All right, so yeah, my next pick is Nemesis Reloaded #4, which is the sort of like reboot or reloading, if you want to use a title that the book uses, of the Nemesis concept by Mark Millar. Originally, it was Mark Millar and I think
Steve McNiven.
Steve McNiven, yeah. But with this one, he's been teamed up with Jorge Jimenez, who did a lot of great work on Batman before, and great artist for this. The Nemesis concept is basically just flipping Batman. Like what if someone like Batman was a villain, and instead of going around saving Gotham, he was going around terrorizing it. And as much as I thought the first series was fun, I really do like this one a lot more. It seems that like the stakes have been raised. Mark Miller is sort of like going a little bit crazier. He has a better grasp on the concept. I think as much as I love Steve McNiven, I think he's a fantastic artist. I think Jorge Jimenez is a better artist for this kind of a series.
Mm-hmm.
And they've really been delivering a lot. This issue in particular was probably my favorite because it's the penultimate issue. So like, we're getting a lot of things coming together. It ends on a great cliffhanger. They fleshed out the character of Nemesis a bit, dwelled into his origin. So it's such a great issue, and it has a lot of great moments, like like Nemesis fucking stealing an atomic bomb and tying the mayor to it. Like I just love the over the top nature of this series. I know a lot of people are turned off by that because I mean it is a bit nihilistic, like Nemesis. The series hasn't ended yet, and I know we're following a villain, but Mark Millar has a great way of kind of giving you a final twist at the end sometimes. So I don't think this is going to be a situation where we're rooting for Nemesis to be winning and like destroying a city. I think he's going to get his comeuppance in the end, and like, but is it a fun ride? Yeah, man. And as much as I've loved the entire Reloaded series up to now, this was my favorite issue. It's just the pacing is great. I read it quickly, but I'm not saying that in a bad way because like I was like into it,
Mm-hmm.
And it's such a rollicking narrative, man. I'm a big fan of Mark Millar. I always have.
He just makes fun, entertaining comics.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if you asked him, he would just agree to that. Like he's not trying to write Watchmen here or anything like that. I think he's just trying to write like something that you're gonna sit down and read and like like when you watch a good action movie, like John Wick or something, where like you get a visceral thrill from it, but like he's not trying to make it like anything deep, and I think he's really good at that, and I will always check out his comics, at least give like the first issues a chance, because 9 times out of 10 I end up getting hooked and end up enjoying it, and that's my main criteria for a comic book, man. I mean, did I enjoy it or not? I'm not really looking for anything else. At the end of the day, it's my favorite medium for entertainment.
Yep.
And does Mark Millar deliver entertainment? Does Nemesis deliver? Yes, it does. So I'm gonna definitely recommend it. If you've been waiting for the trade, there's one issue left, and they usually are pretty quick about turning these around into trade. So you might see it soon. But don't hesitate to pick up the issues if you see them because they're beautifully drawn. Jorge Jimenez is a fantastic artist, man. I love his style, and he's really like doing next level shit on this title.
Yeah, he's a great artist. We should talk to the first volume.
I agree. Yeah.
That, I haven't read Mark Millar in a long time. It had been a while.
Same. It's only been recently that I've gotten back into reading.
Yeah, and I picked up the first Nemesis. There's an OCD with me where if I don't have the singles of a first volume, even though this is a reboot, I can't have a trade and then singles. It bothers me. I know that that's kind of a stupid thing to do, but like, especially like, let's say like Moon Knight, for instance, the current one, right? Like if I don't have the first beginning issues, I don't want to like have trade volume 1, 2, and 3, and then start getting the singles. It bothers me in that sense. I either have to go get the singles or I have to just wait for the trade. That's just how I am. So like I checked out the first issue of Nemesis. I liked it, and I'm like, I'm gonna wait until the trade comes out to kind of finish it off. Ambassadors, though, I loved this concept of a different artist every issue. So when we read that last month, I was like, I loved it, and I'm with it. Like I have this second issue, which we're going to talk about in a second. But I used to love Mark Millar. I used to read everything he did, but there was a point where he was putting out so many different titles. like to where I kind of just like eventually I fell off somewhere, and I'm like, all right, there's a lot to
I
go.
mean, people forget he wrote fucking Civil War, which is like a big part of the MCU, and like with the MCU would not be what it is without that chapter in the series,
Not to
and
mention
that
his
was him,
Wolverine stuff, Old Man
dude. Yeah,
Logan.
Old Man Logan,
I just
Enemy of
sold
the
that book
State.
last night at the shop. Some dude came in. He's like, I don't really read comics. I didn't even know there was a comic book store here. I'm like, he's like, you got any recommendations? I'm like, where do I start, dude? It was just me and him in the store. I was like, what's your budget? And he told me, he's like, I don't know, like 15, $20. I'm like, all right, well, so I'm like, that limits me in terms of what I could kind of show you. But he ended up picking up Old Man Logan and Batman Long Halloween. He just kind of
Nice.
like trusted my recommendations. I was like, look, these are both good one-offs where you don't really need to have any like before or after kind of deal. But yeah, Old Man Logan was like he said Wolverine. So I'm looking, like, dude, this is a great story.
I mean, I'm a huge fan of Wolverine Enemy of the State that he did with like John Romita Jr. Like that was like a great,
I love that one too. The only
uh,
reason I
yeah.
recommended Old Man Logan over Enemy of the State is because I feel
That's another
like,
one we should do.
yeah, I feel like Old Man Logan is a little bit more self-contained than
You
Enemy of
need
the
less
State.
knowledge of the Marvel universe. The
Yes.
Enemy of the State has a lot of shit going on, but
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on there. So I just figured, well, that's a good kind of like one-off thing. And it's funny because then I went to Batman. I gave him Dark Knight Returns. I'm like, I just realized I just gave you two old versions of the characters to read. And then I'm like, here, pick up Long Halloween. I'm like, if somebody had a gun to my head and I had to pick my favorite Batman story, the first thing that comes into my mind is Long Halloween. So I would say get this. And I told him the concept. He's like, that sounds really good. I'll get this one next time. But yeah, he's written so many good stories, good ultimates,
yeah.
right? Like and that's another one I know we talked about doing, but like there's a lot of good stuff, and I've been digging what he's been doing. Even on the back of this, we got Big Game, which is
Yeah.
connecting all of his stuff.
I'm super curious as to how that's gonna work.
Yeah, but I'm
And I have
stoked
a
on it.
theory he's laying groundwork in all the titles right now.
I think so.
Yeah.
Do you care if we just jump into ambassadors since we're like kind
No,
of
no,
already
go
there?
ahead.
All
Because
right,
I actually
so
read both of them this morning, so they're fucking
okay,
fresh in my head.
I read
Like,
ambassadors this morning too. So that's the next pick that we're gonna talk about is ambassadors. Mark Millar obviously is writing, so it's the second book we're talking about of his this week, and then Carl Kerschel is the artist. So like I said last time, I'm pretty sure it's 6. Oh yeah, 6 issues. Each issue is a different artist. So the concept of the book is that scientist, they've found a way to create superheroes basically, and they're gonna pick 6 that are called the ambassadors, right? And that last issue was insane, dude. Like she basically transferred her mind into this new body, killed herself. And I love how they kind of mention it in the issue where she's like, thanks for going to my funeral, I couldn't
yeah,
go. It's not a funny book, but it has Mark Millar's dry, dark
yeah,
humor
very
throughout.
sardonic, kind of like dark humor.
And
Yeah, I
I
mean, because I
forgot
mean,
how much I like that about his writing. I really
yeah,
do. But I love this. The artist Carl Kerschel, huge fan of his stuff.
yeah, same.
I love this guy, this new hero, quote unquote, that's coming in, because like I think you apply for it, right? And they have to like decide who they're gonna
Yeah,
do. So you start off with this dude, and he works at a mall, and he's like walking and stuff, and these guys with fucking guns come up, and they're holding this girl hostage, and he opens his mouth, right, and says something. I have to say, like, I would not have expected it to go this route, but this dude gets blasted. He just gets fucking blasted, and he gets shot in the head, and he's fucking laying there dead. And then we go
I thought he
to
was gonna get his powers at that moment or something somehow, or like,
that's what I thought. First of all, I didn't think he
yeah,
was gonna get shot. And then when
yeah,
he got shot, I'm like, okay, well, maybe he has his fucking powers and he's gonna do some shit. No.
or they
And
gave it to him then when and like in the instant and you see him kick ass or no, but it takes a different route.
yeah, so I love this, dude. And then we go to Antarctica with this base, and she's asking, how many applicants. So we have 200 million. 200 million in the first 4 days. That makes
Yeah,
sense to me.
which makes sense when you like spoiler alert when you find out the twist that it's actually been several years since the incident we saw that you mentioned with the guy getting shot and then him getting resurrected, quote unquote, and given the powers. And at first I was like, man, that's a long time. I'm like, but I could imagine if they had that many applicants, it would take years for them to pick the right team. It's not like, like they're basically trying to build an Avengers level team to police the world. And what a great concept. And now the name the ambassadors makes sense because like that's a much better name for a superhero team. It's like less like aggressive, you know what I mean? Like it's more of a peacekeeping sounding name. Like it's almost like, all right, so if there was gonna be a multinational worldwide, superhero team made of people from different countries, the ambassadors as a name makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense. I just and I love, like I said, the humor. Like, basically anyone who's ever seen a superhero movie has a pie, And the global obsession with costume characters is absolutely fascinating. It just shows what a good job Disney's marketing department has done.
You know what's funny is I just mentioned he's laying hints. There's a part in Nemesis, the new issue of Nemesis, where Nemesis is like on the rooftop and you're in his thoughts, and he's looking at billboards for like the Netflix show of Jupiter's Legacy, like funny in joke. But he's also thinking about the world's obsession with costumed people, and I'm like, that's what I'm saying. Is this the groundwork? You know what I mean? Like, because like are all these stories taking place in the same reality? Is like what's the thread? And I'm starting to see. I think he's gonna work in that obsession we have with superheroes now. I think that's gonna be the overall like connecting thread. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I'm starting to see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely excited for that book, dude. I think it's gonna. I
Yeah.
mean, Pepe Larraz on art is gonna be amazing. But I just love
But
it.
you're right, Ambassadors is great, dude, and like what a different feel from the first issue, but still like cohesive with what we read.
Yes,
Like
yes. And you move forward and talking about the different people that applied. Somebody in Afghanistan, somebody in Africa, and talking about, you give like just like a brief thing on that person, right? Like somebody that lost his family in an American raid, dude, a French scientist who refused to patent a COVID vaccine because he felt it shouldn't be used for profit. So just like little snippets of like the people they're sending out, which I think are going to be the people that are going to be the ambassadors. Because also, spoiler, the person they're talking about that, or no, that's not the dude in Afghanistan, is not him. But I'm assuming those will be the other ones moving forward. Maybe I'm wrong, but I like how they talk about what is his name? The guy that they took from India. It's Binu? I don't want to say that name wrong. Binu Bhatia, I guess.
I think
From the Delhi massacre, and like you see him all laid up in there. He's been shot, and like you said, they don't. Well, I'll just say it now because they fast forward 1 week later after they've resurrected him, but they're telling him like, oh, your family's fine. The person that you stood up for, she's fine, and she's the one that reached out and said like you should be a part of it. And I love when he finds out that 7 years has passed, and he can't tell people how he was resurrected. He just he had to come out of a coma. The way that they choose the powers is dope, right? Like you can only use 3 at a time, and if somebody else is using that power, you can't use it.
Which I love that. I was wondering when I started reading the series, is like, how is it going to go? Like, are they each going to have like specific permanent powers? But I like this idea that as a team, they're going to be able to share powers. They can't all have the same one at the same time. So it's a really fucking cool idea, man. And again, it just shows you that Mark Millar is great at high concept ideas, but he also executes them, which a lot of people can come up with the idea, but the execution tends to fall a little short. He's able to do both, man. He's doing it with Nemesis. He's doing it with this title, which is why I'm so psyched for the crossover, like
same.
Yeah.
I love that, the costume. He's like, I'm not crazy about it. He's like, well, can't we do like national animals? And she's like, no, then we'd look like the cast of Cats.
I love how she's like, we had a bunch of comic artists design the costumes. You know what I mean? Like, I love that. So I love that. Like he always finds a way to do the things like that just make you chuckle, and goes to show you that, like, a big criticism Mark Millar gets is that he's just writing properties so that he can sell them for other media. And I'm like, bullshit. The guy loves comics. Like, like it's fucking obvious.
He doesn't have to do fucking comics. He doesn't have to. That's the thing that's like so annoying. Like, look, you can.
He made a lot of money off this Netflix deal. He could just piss off and retire. You know what I mean?
Say that you don't like his comics, but I don't think you could ever question whether or not he loves comics, because he doesn't.
Great way to put it.
He doesn't have to do comics. He has his money. He could just write the concepts for the fucking movies or the shows or whatever. But he's making comics, dude. And look,
and he knows artists. He picks up. He's so good at picking the artists.
He gets them paid, dude. He pays them some of the best rates that they've seen.
Yeah, that's why people want to work with him, and he gives them credit, co-creator credit when it's like appropriate. He is a big supporter of creator rights, like you said. I think he's I don't know if it was on his interview on Cartoonist Kayfabe, but I know he talks about like how he likes to give the best pay rate possible. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Because
I
he
think
wants,
it was
yeah,
on there that he said
yeah.
that. But yeah, I
And
won't get
that won
too.
me over. I'm like, he knows how important that is to a creator, you know, and he's gonna take care of him. So he cares about the medium, he cares about the creator. People can fuck off, bro. You know,
Yeah,
like
no, totally agree. But yeah, I won't get too much more into it. I don't want to like spoil too much. We've already spoiled enough. But it's a great book, great series.
yes,
I've
grab all these Mark Millar books coming out now, man.
it's not always commonplace for me to continue a mini series. Sometimes I'll check out the first issue and then I'll get the trade at the end of it because
Same.
when you know it's a mini series, like I hate to say this, but you kind of know it's going to be collected for the most
Yeah.
part, especially Mark Millar. But this was a book that like I did not want to wait to read. I wanted to keep getting it, so I highly recommend it. I'm sure you recommend it too. So go pick up the book. More than worth it. It's a funny and
One
action-packed
hundred
book.
percent. Yeah.
And last book, short, only talking 4 books this week, so it's a
Yeah.
kind of like we're talking the new Guardians of the Galaxy.
Which cover did you get for that? I got the Scotty Young.
Oh, they didn't have it. I got the A cover.
Yeah.
I like that Scotty Young one though. So we got
Yeah,
Jackson
I
Lansing,
always love Scotty Young's covers. Whenever he does a variant, I try to pick that one up.
Colin Kelly are the writers. Kev Walker, artist. Matt Hollingsworth on colors.
Dude, I mean, I didn't even know Hollingsworth was coloring it, and that got me super excited when I picked up the book and saw that because he's one of, I mean, he fucking colored Preacher, you know what I mean? Like he's one of my favorite colors.
I know I'm pretty sure he did all of Thor, right? By Jason Aaron.
I think so too. Yeah.
I hope I'm not wrong. Or it's the other Matt Wilson. It's probably the other Matt. So I'm sorry if I got that wrong. But yeah, so we have a new Guardians of the Galaxy, right? This is a departure from what we got with Al Ewing. It's a completely different type of concept. Has obviously, as you can see from the A cover, it's got this like Magnificent Seven Western type vibes kind of going on.
I mean, like that.
I really love yes. I
Yes.
really love the opening.
Again, like Magnificent Seven, like Seven Samurai kind of vibe, you know. Like
Yeah.
I like this take on you know Star Lord being almost like a man with no name in this situation, you know. Like he's got like the you know the poncho, the flapping in the air, riding in on like a horse-like creature, like Dusty
they're
Town,
on
the
a
one
different
broken
planet.
like IP.
Yeah, I think this is definitely a complete departure from what the last run is. I mean, I don't see really any connection to it, but that's not a bad thing.
No.
I'm neither here nor there on that. Is that bad? Is it good? I don't know. Like, but I do feel like if you haven't been reading Guardians, this is a good entry point. If you have been reading Guardians, I don't know. I don't usually mind when they do a drastic change. Like when they did Immortal Hulk, I was fine with that. But then I also wasn't very happy with jumping into Donny Cates right away either. But at least with this Guardians, they gave it a few months. And I think that that's usually my issue. If you're going to kind of have a distinct difference between the run that preceded it, then give it a couple months. Give it a few months before you relaunch it. Because when you do the next month, you're doing a disservice to the fans because you're making them feel like, okay, well then, like you're just completely ignoring everything that came before, or you're just completely ignoring some of the plot threads. Like I compare it to Daredevil with Bendis, right? And then Brubaker took over. And it was always like them passing the baton. They'd leave Matt Murdock in a really fucked up situation and like, okay, your turn kind of deal, you know? But it was like it was a continuing story. So this, I enjoyed it because, you know, like it's been a few months since we had a Guardians book and I love Westerns. I do
too. Yeah.
And there's no Westerns in comic books nowadays. It's something that I've thought about. Like if I'm going to write a comic, maybe I would do like a little Western or something, you know?
Yeah. I've had a couple ideas for some Westerns. And like, I mean, Preacher's one of my favorite comics and that's arguably a Western, you know what I mean?
I would say it's
like,
a Western. Yeah. But it's, you know, just, it's cool to see the cast in this kind of like setting. I love the way Gamora is designed in
the
this.
introduction of her is great and her design is great, you know what I mean? Like I love her costume in this, you know, like it's, I love the eye makeup, like, you know, like the swords, like it's almost like a weird like goth punk rock look to her that I like, which makes sense for her personality, you know. I love Mantis in this, you know. I love her personality, like the interaction of the Guardians is all really good. And Kev Walker is fucking killing it, man. Like there's so many great pages in this. Like I love like all the crooked panels he does, and like how the layouts are very interesting in this book, man. Some
Hmm.
of the most interesting layouts I've seen in like a major mainstream monthly in a while. The introduction of Drax is great too, with like the name and the like the lettering in the background,
Oh
Drax.
shit!
You know,
I didn't even like pay attention to that.
like it's just like a powerful. It's like he's coming in and like
Yeah,
fuck boom. You know what I mean? Like
I
it's
love this, dude. The shootout right here. That's
that's
dope,
what I'm
dude.
saying. Like the awkwardly angled panels just give it like that like chaotic nature of a shootout, like a western shootout. You know what I mean? Like dust flying everywhere and like debris and like like chaos and confusion. Like it's just it really is a very energetic issue, an action packed introduction that gets you going right away. Great concept with like the group fall again. Like great page. I mean, it's just a solid first issue, and like you said, it's a great way to sort of restart a series with a reinterpretation without really, having to have read the prior one, but giving you enough knowledge about these characters that anyone with a passing knowledge of the Guardians, who are now part of pop culture, can really pick this book up and enjoy it. So, yep, I'd
Yeah,
say it's definitely a good
I know. I feel like we haven't
one.
really talked about too much of what went on, but that's fine. I feel like it's best to go in blind with this one. I know.
Yeah,
I feel like certain books, like I don't mind kind of talking about it, but I feel like, especially in number one, sometimes I don't want to get too much into the details of it because I feel like I related to what my experience was. I didn't know anything other than it had Western vibes. I don't like to have books spoiled for myself. I like to go in as blindly as I can, especially now with how much stuff gets spoiled on social media
yeah,
or on the internet. But it is you're on an alien planet, but this town is like an old west town, which is
yeah.
kind of
I mean,
cool.
I've been watching a lot of Mandalorian lately, and it has a vibe to that too. Like,
You have to
like
think that that's kind of influencing
yeah,
this choice.
100%. How Star Wars, especially, I think, is a big influence on Guardians. And like if you like Star Wars, you're probably going to like this title also. Like it has that vibe.
But yeah, I think it's interesting, like the one thing we did spoil is Groot is basically the villain.
Yeah,
That last page, I'll show it, whatever. It's not really, doesn't really spoil much, but look at that. I mean, like, what the fuck has happened to Groot? Like, we have no
he's
idea
basically
how.
going around and like taking over planets. Like his roots are growing everywhere and kill. Like it's. And I'm like, that's a great take on Groot. Like, and like what a tragedy for him. For such a good character.
I love that you mentioned the man with no name because next time, it says next time, a fistful of Mysterium. That's a callback. That's a callback to a fistful of dollars right there,
Oh yeah,
And I just noticed that right now as we were talking. I didn't even pick up on that last night when I was reading it, but I'm here for it, dude. I will check this book out. Look, Colin Kelly and Jackson Lansing have been doing some interesting stuff. I really dug their Kang book that they did. I think it was last year. I know they did a Batman Beyond book. I haven't read that one, but I heard that that was pretty good. The Neo year or something like that, I think it was called. And they're doing another. They're doing another Batman Beyond. They've been working on the Cap book, so they're a writing team that has been doing some stuff together with
yeah.
Marvel and DC for a little while now. But I like this concept. I think it stands out enough from the previous runs to where
Mm-hmm.
it can be its own thing, and that's sometimes I think that's good. Like you want to differentiate yourself, especially when you launch a book that has had so many other writers on it. Over, you had Donnie Cates, you had Al Ewing, you had Bendis, going all the way back Jim Valentino back in the day with which was a
Yeah,
completely different team. But this is some Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning too. But
yeah.
this is something that I'm excited for. Like I said, love westerns, and I love their costumes. I love the
Dude,
design
yeah.
of their costumes because their
Same. I mean, I
character.
love the way Nebula looks. I love the way, Gamora looks. I love the, like Peter Quill, Star Lord's like, like man with no name poncho look. Like
Yeah.
it's a great series of images, and I mean, Kev Walker is killing it, bro. Great,
Yes.
great, great title, and I'm adding it to my pull list. I really want to see where this is going.
Same. Same. I'm same. I'm right there with you, dude. It was a good one, good week. Like not
Yeah, yeah,
a
yeah.
huge. And,
I
and
enjoyed the shit out of every fucking book. Not that I don't every week, but like this was a week that was quantity. I mean, quality over quantity. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Which is
yes.
a great thing, you know?
I agree, dude. Like that, and I don't mind that. Sometimes there's gonna be weeks that like it's hard to narrow it down to six because I like to keep it around six
We've
just
had
so
those
it'll
weeks like,
go.
what the fuck are we gonna talk about? I like 10 books this week. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
but
Like,
I like to keep it short, and like that's why like I could have forced myself to talk about maybe a couple other books, but these are the four that
yeah,
kind of stood out to
like
me.
I grabbed Wildcats, which I've been enjoying.
Yeah,
Giant Cocktail, which was a lot of fun. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Like a bit interesting type of humor, but like
it's Jerry
it's
Duggan,
lowbrow
so
humor, but it's yeah.
yeah, so yeah, a lot of good stuff, dude, and I dug the books this week definitely, and I'm sure next week
But
is
I
gonna
mean,
have.
not a week goes by that there isn't at least two fucking books.
Hey, dude,
Probably more like
if
three.
there's a week that there's only two books we talk about, there's a week when we talked about two books, whatever,
Yeah,
but there's always going to be something to talk about. There's always
yeah.
something good that's coming out. And yeah, dude, I'm excited for next week. And I think there's a couple books I think are coming out next week. Not sure. But yeah,
Yeah, I'll look
there
at the. I'll look online. Usually on Fridays or Saturdays, I give it a look to so I can sort of get my head wrapped around what's coming out.
same. I usually look Thursday because that's when the new list gets uploaded to the poll on
Yeah,
because all of our stuff's online to where we can add stuff, and that's usually when I
yeah,
know what I'm going to pick. But yeah, another great week. Hope you guys check out the books we
yeah.
talked about. Come back next Friday for another episode of the weekly poll. We got Manny's links down below, Comic Lounge links down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and the bell icon so you're notified every time a new vid drops. And on that note, we're out.
We'll see you next week, guys.